Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for yet another Brony Debates Live. I hope everyone out there is doing well today. Joining me is one of my favorite Brony drama channels, FNGR. How are you doing today?
There we go. We're live. I'm doing good.
Good. Yeah, we just couldn't wait to get started here. We were fixing to get started in a little bit, but you know what? Forget about it. If everybody's ready to go and setup didn't take as long as it usually does, let's do it. And also joining me today is one of my patrons, one of my students, and a author, FiMfiction author, and Fallout Equestria mod maker, Malcontent. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. Glad to be here.
Good. And so normally while we have a moderator, today couldn't fill that role. So I'm going to be watching the chat and taking down all of your questions and concerns to get...
I was going to make a suggestion. I just saw Dulcet Tone's there. You could probably use him for a mod if he's down.
Certainly, if he would like to. I've got my notifications open. Dulcet, I see you in the...
He's also probably has some things to say about Coppa too. Not that I mean, your pod. Sorry.
No, I'm always open to suggestions, and if he'd like to come on, I'd love to have him. And just let me know in the chat. So, as I was saying, I'm going to be for the time being, I'm going to be watching the chat here. If you have any questions, ask them at any time. We'll get to them in the last 15 minutes there. So let's talk a little bit about... Actually, no, wait. Gosh darn it. I'm all scatterbrained today.
Well, we could jump back to where we were a minute ago.
What about a word from our sponsors?
Yeah, normally I do that right at the beginning when I can freaking remember. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. You make this possible, especially to those of the $10 and up tier. These guys are Autoknight, Rosander, Senko, Jennan, Kellogg, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, and our guy right here in the center of the screen, the Equestrian City Heroverse series author Malcontent himself. With that, now that I've gotten all the nonsense out of the way.
All in one breath, I might add.
Oh, I'm quite talented. Let's talk about Coppa here. So... a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago, I lose track of time, YouTube said that something along the lines of anything not child-friendly is probably going to get taken off if it's not labeled properly, but even if it is, there's a chance it could get taken off anyway. Let's first talk about how we understand these rules and how we're interpreting what we know about it, because it's been very vague, and some of us have been doing a lot of research, but I don't think any of us are actually lawyers or lawmakers here. Full disclosure, anybody here a lawyer or a lawmaker?
No.
All right.
But I have seen a YouTube channel that was from allegedly a lawyer that claimed that they had a pretty good vibe on this. So which perspective would you like to would you like to keep the audience in fear or put them at ease? Because I could go either way on this one.
Hey,
it's your show, and I don't want to grab the reins and be like, so this is the way we're going.
Listen, I would not. I don't invite people on without being fully aware that might happen, and I welcome it. Let's start with let's start with what you think is the most possible. I want you to just be completely honest with me.
So Blood Archer literally beat me by a second. Screw you. And I said you could be fined up to $42,000. That is the terror. And my perspective has been, look, I'm a gambler. I really love YouTube. I guess I'm gonna put my neck out there and be like, well, we're in December. What is today's date? Is it the 5th?
I believe so. The 5th or the 4th.
Oh, it's the 4th.
Depends where you're living right now. Yeah.
So yeah, as I understand it, where our deadline is the 9th to have all our ducks in a row, and we're 5 days away from Flavor Country. At worst case scenario. I wish I could tell you that maybe it's based off, the fine will be based off of views and sub, and how if the video is reaching out. Can I do the counter argument?
Of course.
So whether you like Jim Sterling or not, he said it best like this. And he said based off of that, what's the governing body? Is it the FTC?
FTC, yes.
Yeah, he's like, they're horrifically underfunded, and I'm not going to sweat it based off of that. They have no means by which to be able to send out that many. He's like, I'm going to literally make this video with Pokemon up in the background. That's how confident I am. And the minute you told me that they don't have the money to pursue it, I'm like, so basically it's like slander online. You might get super unlucky, but it's probably not going to happen. If I wanted to instill fear, if I were the FTC, what I would do is I would find 5 of the biggest YouTube channels that were guilty of breaking it and 5 rando no-names, just to keep everyone terrified. They're probably not going to do that. I don't know, not a lawyer. I'm just guessing. The other thing that I saw from was a law channel that made the remark. As the FTC thing goes, there was supposed to be an option for general audience. That doesn't just apply for kids. They didn't put that in there because YouTube is YouTube and they didn't really care about us. I can't speak if things like Disney got. Yeah, that's another thing I'll point out here. You should be terrified when you go to Cartoon Network or Disney and you see the comments shut off because they probably decided we're not going to gamble.
Yeah.
Until then, I like my odds.
All right, so you don't think anything's going to happen?
I deal in the worst case scenario. I'm fully prepared to have them fucking sue me for $42,000, and I'm gonna file for bankruptcy. That's my case. I'm prepared to. I'm down. The only way that it's not gonna happen is they send out a fine wave. They don't hit me. They hit enough people, and I'm like, I don't like my odds anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I hear like 1,000 people got hit, and we're like, this is your last warning, and I'm like, yeah, you made your point, but I'm definitely gonna be there.
Okay, so let's move down the table a little bit here. So Malcontent, based on what you know about this, what do you think is most likely going to happen? What do you think is going to be the effect of this?
Well, most likely, I guess I'd have to agree on several elements that he has put forward on that. I think they're going to find the highest person in the crowd and then probably strike them down and then randomly start pointing at other people in order to just kind of scatter.
Do you have an idea who that might be, though?
No, honestly,
Okay.
I don't keep an eye on enough of YouTube itself to judge who is important and who is not.
Well, there are major companies like Disney and such and Cartoon Network.
Yeah, I mean there's obviously, I think they're going to go after probably high-profile targets, and then, like you suggested, the lower end of it, just to say, oh yeah, and by the way, we can get you too. And what I remember reading about that also is that it's $42,000 per violation, so they could literally get you. Yeah, they can literally get you like 6 or 7 different times just to terrify you, and then be like, all right, well, we're only going to do this once, but we're being nice about it. So there's a lot of stuff out there right now. I was just doing a scan before we got in here, and there's still a lot of speculation on both ends of the particular table here. Some people have just completely bunkered down, and other people have been basically like your philosophy here is like, come and get me. So it's really hard to tell right now, especially in the political climate that we're in the United States, where it's going to go, because on one side it looks like it's really leaning toward the corporation, and on the other side we've got more people than the corporation as it is doing their own things on YouTube and things like that.
Misunderstanding, this isn't YouTube going or else. This is the government. YouTube's already been fined $150 million.
Yeah, that was a landmark kind of size.
Yes. We're now on the hook. And
no, it's rolling downhill, absolutely.
Yes.
Which it doesn't make, if I may interject, it doesn't make any amount of sense that content creators are on the hook for these things, because the reason YouTube got hit was because they were taking in information on kids that were watching the videos for personalized ads. I don't think any content creator had a say in what exactly they were taking as far as the information and what ads were getting put out on their own videos.
I think that was completely back end, yeah.
Again, well, just an aside to you, Brony, if you have ads on your videos, I mean, if you kept them off, I mean, I've heard you might be good. My answer to this is I went back through my Brony content, and most of those are claimed by Hasbro, but the ones that aren't getting views, so I just demonetized them. That may or may not let me off the hook, but I feel like if I go to court, I'll be like, hey, look, I tried to prevent ads from being on there at all. If Hasbro put them on there, that's their problem at this point.
Yeah, and I was never monetized in the first place, so if that's what would be the thing that works, I'd be in the same boat as you. But I don't think anything's going to happen, because I really don't think that YouTube, because YouTube can't even police itself properly. And for every
consistently either.
Yeah, they've got too many biases, and they're running at a huge loss. YouTube can't even do it. How the heck is a government agency with probably way less funding going to do it? The only hope would be to actually nail somebody for up to $42,000, but that $42,000 is a drop in the bucket to any government agency. They're going to spend way more trying to get that money out of people than they actually are. If they try to hit someone big enough, what I would think would happen was, kind of like an H3 Productions type of thing, where it ends up turning into a big court battle and lawsuit, and it would be forced to drag YouTube and the FTC out into the open, and show that we really don't, like, these rules don't apply to us as YouTube is saying it does. Someone with a big audience like PewDiePie, for instance, could probably crowdfund for their could probably legally crowdfund for their
he's worth $9 million.
For their legal battles, and yeah. I could see it like it would be a stretch, but certainly within the realm of possibility of it turning into a class action lawsuit. So imagine if hundreds of people of roughly that size got involved.
It's not necessarily a class action lawsuit, because you're not suing YouTube. I don't know if you could sue the federal government.
You'd have to sue the government, yeah.
Yeah, well, you can, and it's been done before. Right. I don't know how many times successfully.
Very arduous process, however.
Well, any class action is an arduous process. Let's not kid ourselves in the least bit here. It would suck, and it would probably put a lot of people's content on the back burner for a couple of years. But that they would have to, those involved would have to make the decision of whether or not they want to take that potential hiatus to deal with this.
I know you're not a fan. I hate to quote Jim Sterling, since he's actually somebody who was taken to court in a civil case matter. Mm-hmm. He made it sounded like it was more in the six figures cost by the time it was all said and done. So there's a couple of people who could stand there and, yes, what's the term we're looking for here is we could have a precedent. That's what we could hope for at this case. I don't know how successful we can really fight back against the federal government. I'm kind of leaning or hoping that, the funding won't be there at first. It will really... It should... The Coppa thing's been around for a while, right? Like, this is...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, since the 90s, I believe.
Yeah, so theoretically, yeah, people... I mean, there's reasons to still be annoyed at YouTube because they didn't make us aware sooner. Mm-hmm. To be fair, I don't think we'd be all that thrilled either way. How do I put this? This technically, as the law stands, it should be falling on like Twitter and Facebook and even BitChute. It just hasn't gotten there because they're not in, they didn't get sued yet.
Right. It's an all-encompassing enforcement policy that they're trying to put out there. As far as what happened on YouTube, it's supposedly supposed to hit the entire.
Yeah, it's like with every other law. Good luck enforcing it if it's not practical.
It needs to be better defined.
And that segues perfectly into my next point that I wanted to hit is how let's talk about how YouTube or the FTC would accurately or enforce this at all, because let's be honest here, I'd say a good 90% at least of the content on YouTube is not child friendly or geared towards kids, even if it supposedly is. You know, like most Bronalysis videos, okay? Most of my colleagues cuss and use clips from R-rated movies. Shoot, I've done that a couple of times in my show. Quoting things like, you know, shoot, I suddenly forgot my entire repertoire, but what are you saying, Anthony?
Yeah, I was about to say, and I had this planned for a video, and I think as I calmed down, I guess that's the real telling scene here, because I threw views away. And the video was going to be top 10 people who are likely screwed by Coppa, or in the Brony fandom. Yeah. I could think of a couple people, call it Schadenfreude, that I can admit have stayed as squeaky clean as humanly possible. I think Brony Inspector pointed out to me about, Dr. Wolf was like, should I be worried? And he's like, yes! I would absolutely say that you've done everything in your power to be as safe as possible, and you would be the poster child for the person who should be deeply, deeply concerned if Coppa is enforced. How would you justify, for example, and again, without any smack talk whatsoever, how Dr. Wolf is not child content, so to speak?
How Dr. Wolf is not child content. Well,
yes, that he would not be the, Well,
he was on the back of that one DVD. I mean, if that's not child friendly.
Oh, that's mean. That's mean. Here's what I would think, because Dr. Wolf and I, in some ways, have similar content. Like some of the episode reviews that he did is similar in subject matter and tone to my Moral of the Story series. I don't gear those videos towards any specific age group or demographic in general, because I believe that morality is a universal type of thing. Now, sometimes I say things in those videos that I wouldn't say to someone under the age of 10, for instance, in the rare circumstances when the subject matter does get that heavy. But it takes a lot for me to get there. Like, an episode really has to drag that kind of thing out of me. And this sort of, brings me back to the almost moot point at this juncture, is that YouTube wasn't supposed to be used by people under 13 in the first place.
Exactly.
So
it became a medium. They saw money basically, and they started going at.
Right, which is understandable as a business, but you can't pass that kind of thing off to your, like, when you break the law as a company, you can't pass that off to your end user like it was their fault, like they did it. And that's what they're trying to do right now. And like I was saying, because over 90% of this stuff would fall under this purview of not within the general audience type of thing. There's no way that it could be enforced by the FTC or by YouTube or by any amount of people that wouldn't result in the effective killing of the platform.
Yeah, that's hundreds of thousands of individual lawsuits and cases. That's ludicrous.
Yeah.
I have a false equivalency real quick here.
Okay.
I mean, naturally, I'm setting myself up here a little bit. Jesus, I had it and lost it. For example here. Jeez, it's gone now.
See, that's probably me. I do that. I don't know how that is.
Give me the false equivalent. That's where you left off.
Yeah, I was trying to say for like YouTube. Yeah, no, I was going to make a equivalent to TV.
Okay.
Let's say that someone gets in trouble on TV. Who gets sued, the network or the show?
That's interesting, because I used to, and I actually don't know 100%, but sometimes the network gets sued and then they push it off onto the show.
Downhill.
Yeah, and I'm going to use the equivalency of YouTube's a network. They've already been sued. They've been hit for what they intend to be hit for, and we're now the shows.
But that's definitely a false equivalency, because when I saw it happen, because I worked at a TV station from 2008 until 2011, and I accidentally got a show canceled because we would get these late night shows in, and I'd have to watch them and make sure everything fell within the FCC guidelines. Like nobody was dropping any heavy cusses, everybody was keeping their clothes on, nobody got outright killed, kind of thing. And I'm watching it, and it's fine, it looks good, and I put it on air. I missed a cuss word. I missed somebody dropping an F-bomb and didn't censor it. I didn't notice it. I don't know why. And there was like another show that was running on the same network that was very similar, and they wanted each other canceled because they were fighting each other for that screen time, and they called us up right away and complained about them dropping the F-bomb in that one episode that I missed, and that show was gone. Like the next, like just right off the schedule.
Did you get Firefly canceled?
No, it wasn't Firefly. It was some stupid locally produced reality show from that series. It was shot on a freaking DV Handycam. It was it was not a good show. Nobody watched it. Nobody missed it. But so.
Somebody saw it, obviously.
But here we're dealing with something that YouTube, the network, did. Like, we didn't break any FCC violations. We didn't go on national TV and drop an F-bomb or have Justin Timberlake rip off half of our costume at the.
Hold it.
There's an image.
When you have child-friendly content, and here's the counter argument to this. Let's say. Or I'll move on from Dr. Wolf. Let's say I'm the Brony Notion. Mm-hmm. God help me. I put out a video which could be arguably kid-friendly content. I put more... I load it down with enough ads because it's over 11 minutes, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, maybe YouTube wouldn't have gave him the heads up, but it would have been kind of on him if he was making kid-friendly content. I mean, even when YouTube had that thing where they kind of like gave you the option or they gave you the heads up, hey, they weren't legally required to do so, is what I kept hearing from like a couple different videos. They just decided to do that as a courtesy.
Well, that's interesting. So, but I think what you're referring to now is sort of what we were dealing with in the Elsa Gate situation. I think it was like, 2 years ago or last year, something like that, where everybody was putting up these Spider-Man and Elsa videos that were just one step down from pornography. And the kids were watching them on autoplay and actually getting traumatized by some of the freaky stuff they were seeing, right? And that's not something that a bot can handle. But there's...
I must have missed that. That sounds...
I only know about it from like other people. I didn't know about it until after the fact. It was referenced during other YouTube drama, though.
It was definitely one of those things that got buried in everything else that was happening. But I was following that. I wanted to know what would happen to that, and like everything else, nothing ever came of it.
That's the thing. Was there any horrific fallout?
Aside from the something. I think we're dealing with the fallout right now because child advocacy groups complained about this kind of thing, and one thing led to another, and they found out that YouTube was taking personalized information that they shouldn't have been taking, and now here we are. That's my theory, anyway.
Oh, well, that would sound about right. Usually, you find things like this when you're not looking for them.
Yeah. And that's another thing about the enforceability issue here is they're going off of the criteria set by these child advocacy groups, and like this feels weird coming from me because I've worked with children before, and I was very I enjoyed teaching when I did. And, I definitely care a lot about kids' well-being and mental health and all sorts of things like that. And I've never once in my life seen a child advocacy group do anything or put forth any or suggest any sort of solution that was actually a solution and would actually fit. It all ends up coming down to censorship, where there should be parental an individual. What's the word I'm looking for?
Responsibility.
Thank you. Yes.
I was about to say the reason why I think we're in trouble, and technically everything, as I understand it, that makes money has what do they call these? The people who like pay the politicians. What are they called?
Lobbyists.
Lobbyists.
Lobbyists. I think that YouTube doesn't bother with lobbyists, and a bunch of pearl clutchers got in the politicians' ears, and they're like, well, we're not getting any kickbacks, and we got to make these people happy somehow.
Well, just going back to what Buck here said, I think it kind of, one of the problems is that we've got so many people that are letting their children sort of run rampant on anything. There's no level of responsibility, and now they come back and see what their kids are looking because of what they didn't, them not being the responsible party in the matter. They're trying to blame someone else for the problems they see instead of actually taking them.
Or the kid comes up to him and goes, "Mommy, I saw Elsa kissing Spider-Man."
Right,
well,
and something like that. It shocks them, and it's like, well, where did you see that? Well, I saw it over here on YouTube. YouTube is the devil.
Yeah,
and
well, they did the same.
Spiraling.
They did the same thing to television too, where people weren't paying attention to what their kids were watching, and then advocacy groups and parents themselves tried to blame the network for airing it in the first place instead of just, watch it. Like when I was growing up, we had times when we were allowed to watch television and be on the computer to avoid this kind of thing from happening. What were you going to say, Anthony?
I was going to say, well, there's also where do you draw the line on general content here? Because it came to me, and I was sitting there thinking, we did a PSA where it was me, Aeon of Dreams, Lightning Bliss, Golden Fox, and that creepy reading about predators in the fandom, and it's supposed to be there to warn parents, and I guess to some degree kids. Does that constitute as being for a general audience? Because I want it to be able to reach as many people as possible. But at the same time, I can also argue, well, it's kind of a mature topic. So I feel like I could go either way on that.
Well, then let me ask you this. What would somebody who's underage, let's say, benefit from watching your content?
The following people to avoid. You could get that from the title usually, though, and just follow up on here's some of the facts that we have, or here's some of the reasons why the following person is someone that you'd want to back away from.
Yeah, I guess I could understand that. That's
the argument for that, though, is that most people that have
doing that for the kid, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, at a certain point, the cord's got to get cut, and it would be a good idea if people knew what to look out for when they're off on their own. Got to push the bird out of the nest eventually. Well,
as you stated before, you're not supposed to be online or on YouTube until you're 13, which actually covers this whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's 13 about content, you're okay. And so, technically, the only people we could get on the hook for are people who are literally not supposed to be on YouTube.
Right.
Well, there's a catch in that, though. I mean, coming from the industry that I do, even if somebody is underage that gets into our facility, it's not their fault. It is ours because we are responsible for that problem.
So then how does that translate to something like YouTube then?
Well, with YouTube, it's the same problem. YouTube can't simply just blame the people that are using it wrong. It comes down to them having to enforce it somehow, and it doesn't look like they have the ability to do.
Okay, so I got a question, but I want to hear what Anthony was going to say first.
Sure.
Oh, I was about to say, well, you used a factory as an example?
No, actually, I'm in the casino business.
Okay, so, that was a little bit harder to try and sit there and do. Well, I guess the best I could do in that case is, there are companies that make the games that go into your casino, right?
Correct.
And I'm going to use the equivalency of the people on YouTube to be a stand-in for those companies that give you guys, your craps table or your slot machine or so forth, or your blackjack table. And if you guys let somebody in, are the people who bought the games off of, are they on the hook, or are you guys on the hook?
Oh, the facility is, absolutely.
Yeah. The truth is, for what I'm saying here right now, very much so. I've heard from the was it the FTC again or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen their video. They are saying very much that we should be concerned, and don't listen to me, and don't listen to, even if we're making a really good argument here. It is very likely in 5 days we're going to be part of the whole lethal lottery, so to speak. Keeping my eyes on that. So yeah.
Well, yeah. Ultimately, this whole stream is going to be conjecture and speculation until it actually happens. But there's not much we can do about that. So let's instead talk about, well, actually, no, real quick, because here's what my question to Malcontent was going to be.
Sure.
So at first I was going to ask you if you were comfortable sharing with what industry you work in, but you already said that. So
yep.
I'm still not seeing the equivalence because you're dealing with an actual physical building that I imagine has posted security and cameras and things like that. Am I correct?
Correct.
So if a 10-year-old gets into the casino, then some security measure must have allowed him to come in that was supposed to stop him. YouTube doesn't have any of that kind of thing, and it would be impossible to do it because it's in literally everybody, or at least most Americans in several countries of the developed world. They don't have that measure. It's
right, it would be impossible as it stands right now for YouTube to enforce it to that degree.
Yes.
But what I was referring to, the element, was that's why that YouTube is now moving forward on its base as far as that, and why Coppa has become such a kind of a hot topic as it is. It's a reactionary.
Right. So that's how I know it's not going to be effective in the first place, because every sort of reactionary measure, it never
knee-jerk never works very well.
Right. And real quick, would you gentlemen be okay if I added Dulcet to the call?
By all means, I suggested it.
All right.
Be really douchey to be like, well, 1 second, I'm not good.
All right, man. I didn't want to like go blind and all this. Suddenly Dulcet, I wanted to make sure everybody knew it was going to happen before it actually happened.
Surprise guest, more surprising than the last.
Yep. Next up, we got Ryan Reynolds joining us to weigh in on the conversation. Wouldn't that be great? So let's talk about solutions here while we wait for Dulcet to join the call. How could we have avoided this situation first? This is kind of a two-parter question. First, we'll talk about how this could have been avoided and what we can do going forward should the worst come to pass.
Well, I'm looking at it like this, and you said, what could we have done?
By the way, Dulcet has joined. Hello, Dulcet.
I heard the ba-dum.
So anyway, what were you saying, Anthony?
Yeah, when you talk about what could you do, I try to hold people to a level of reaction that's within their character to some degree. And I don't think that there was anything we could have done based off of YouTube's track record.
Mm-hmm.
As depressing as that might sound. What can we do moving forward? I mean, there is moving to other sites like BitChute, but technically speaking, best way I could describe this as is that it's like we're settlers and we can run out ahead of where the law has caught up to us, but it's eventually going to get there. If that platform is successful, they're going to start to enforce that over there eventually. It may take 10 years, may take 20 years, might not even happen in our lifetime, but Coppa, as I understand it, is supposed to be kind of sort of everywhere, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's supposed to be, but like all government functions,
there's a lot of things that are supposed to be.
Yeah, it doesn't really work. So, but yeah, in terms of face value, there's definitely that. Do you have anything you want to...
language that's very old.
Right. Like, have you seen some of the videos on this thing and they're talking about it and they're like, if you say whatever, dude, you know what? I had some Lucky Charms for breakfast this morning and it was frickin' delicious. Now I'm aimed at kids,
we're getting
right?
Flagged already.
Yeah, exactly. We're getting flagged when it hasn't even started yet. I think
And now Lucky Charms is angry that you branded them.
Well, you know what? Lucky Charms can come fight me. All right, if they can even find me, they deserve it. But the point is, I think the solution is actually pretty simple. YouTube has to put in a general audience option. And sort of waive it. You've got to be. I think if you have to be signed in to YouTube to watch videos, that would help a lot too. And it would suck because I know that sometimes people just don't want to make a YouTube account, but I think it would really be the earliest. And then you can throw in the clause of, you have to be 13 to be on this site and use it and watch it. And if you if you've made an account, then you got to agree to these terms, and therefore whatever happens to you after that, that's kind of on you. If you were 8 years old and you came on and lied about your age or used your parents' account and you saw something you weren't supposed to see, that's on you. That's
Absolutely.
The way.
You can be as traumatized as you want, but it's
and
not our fault.
that is such a simple thing to implement into the terms of service, and I don't know why they did.
The parents.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's when that's when Google should do.
That makes sense, Brony. That could never be on YouTube.
I know, right? That's what I was saying. So, Malcontent, what do you think is a good solution for all of this? How could we have prevented this, and what do we do going forward?
Well, first of all, moving is definitely not the solution, because he's absolutely right. We're just going to keep running until we get pushed off into the ocean. That we need to actually somehow amend these to a way where they're realistic, because I mean, if you're looking at some of the fine print in here is like, if the website uses visual content appealing to a child, including animated characters, bold or fast moving graphics, or bright or
and
vibrant
that's so
colors,
dumb, because anybody who knows anything about marketing or
Exactly.
or graphic design, it's those concepts are universal regardless of age, and sometimes even universal regardless of culture, depending on what every culture has bright, vibrant colors. About
99.9% of your web would be completely gone, and I think we need to make sure that the boomers have nothing to do with writing this next part. So there needs to be some revisions on that, and there needs to be some sort of level of focus group that helps amend it to something that is meaningful, because the idea behind it is good. There should be safety online, don't get me wrong with that, but it can't be used as some sort of general sweeping instrument to wipe everybody off the internet and make it safe.
I have a question here on that, though. So we all agree in this call that nobody here wants what is it called, Coppa?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's pretend that they do go after like 10 people.
Okay.
Let's all pretend for whatever reason that those 10 people are all people we hate.
Well, that's fine then. That's okay.
No, it's not okay.
Well, first they came for the communists, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a communist. And then they came for the Jews, and I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew.
That's a very good equivalency. I like that.
And then they went down 4 other demographics, and I didn't care. And then they got to me, and there was nobody left to defend me.
Yeah, so like let's pretend, I don't know, like they pick off like a Nesion, Sargon, or like whatever. It's 10 completely deplorable people, but we don't agree with the law. Would maybe not as bad as Nesion, but someone you wouldn't care about, and they basically said, look, I need your funding, so if basically we could start a statute. Now obviously if they do hit a bunch of people, we're going to look for that premium person, that good person that we can agree with.
Yeah, we want Markiplier fighting this, not Onision.
Sure, I'll take Markiplier. Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if they're absolutely like the first person they crack is scummy, I'd rather nip this in the ass sooner than later. I mean, ideally, I think Markiplier is probably about as good as I could go with that off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of someone super wholesome and fucking popular. Map Hat. Forgive me, Manga Common.
He is fighting it.
Yeah.
So I would say if there is a champion right now that has the most views, it would be Markiplier.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Somehow I got lost in the question there. What was where were we going?
The question here is it basically, for whatever reason, if Coppa winds up hitting people, and the first wave of people are completely people that you wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't stop to throw water on these people if they were on fire. I would encourage, even if you go lol, like, well, as long as they're not hitting my people, to the people in the audience, don't do that. Obviously, we're going to try and find the best people, but
yeah, when Alex Jones got kicked off of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all that stuff, even people that didn't like him on both sides of the fence were going, no, that's not right.
Well, that's one thing that is, I would agree that it should be equally across. We shouldn't just utilize this as some sort of like, well, I don't like that channel anymore, so let's wait for them to get hit. No, it should be something that should be universally enforced equally with fairness. It shouldn't be just like muhaha moments like that.
I'll come up with a believable option here, because it says, you know, vibrant, colorful. Let's pretend for whatever reason they hit 10 furries. Now, I know it would be really tempting to go lol. Oh, what's the problem?
Oh God, now you're tempting me.
Yeah, see, now I know. Yeah, like let's pretend, what do they call them, poppy furries or something like that?
Something like that. Anthony knows how to push my buttons.
Yeah. No. And I know what my answer would be like. Oh, Anthony, what if they hit Kiro? I'd be like, so? Yeah, I would probably. God, it'd be hard. But it's not going to be that easy. I'm just playing. I'm throwing a philosophical at you guys.
Right, right.
I guess I'd have to. Oh, I'm sorry, Buck. Go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with Anthony. If anything, I was going to follow up with a joke. You know, we got this class action lawsuit that's looking super good. The only problem is it's being spearheaded by Kothrix.
I've talked to Kothrix. I would. As furries go, I'd say he's high average, and I stand behind everything I say there.
All right. So what were you going to say, Malcontent?
As furries go.
Yeah.
As bronies, he'd be like a D minus, maybe? I'm being super...
I didn't realize there was a rating system.
There is a rating system for everything.
When it comes down to it, people have the right to enjoy what they want, even if we don't agree with it, as long as it doesn't violate anyone else's personal freedoms or rights. I don't think it would matter if it were furries, or if it were bronies, or if it were foodies, which I don't even know exist anymore. But I don't think it should be allowed to go after anybody simply because of a vibrant or flashy element of either their content or their website. I mean, people are allowed to utilize what they want to bring people in. It's advertisement. It always has. There's nothing illegal about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as Brony put it, if like, you know, this were to hit Kothrix, you'd be like, no, that is not child friendly. You would have no problem agreeing with that, correct?
No problem.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. So we haven't heard much from Dulcet since he joined. Dulcet, would you care to weigh in on solutions? How could we have avoided this, and what do we do going forward?
Well, personally, I don't think there's anything that we could have done or can do in this scenario.
Okay.
Mainly because the way YouTube has been behaving and selectively giving us information and not giving us information is essentially keeping us in the dark. Now, I noticed that Trent Jerome messaged, there's a YouTuber named Creekcraft, who is meeting the FTC. Now, I don't know this person. I've never watched any of their content, so I couldn't say if I would want them representing YouTubers, but I would say that any dialogue is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
But as things are right now, I think it's just a sit and wait. Because from my personal experience with YouTube, they can't even enforce the statute of limitations. How are they going to enforce anything that they're trying to present right now? They can't.
Indeed.
And the thing is, the moment that fine hits, there is going to be a First Amendment case.
Oh, yeah.
Goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, and none of this is going to matter.
That's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while, but no one can have any action towards that effect.
Exactly. You cannot do that.
Yeah, for anyone who's banking on the right to a fair trial, that is at the criminal level, speedy trial. That is at the criminal level. Civil, you better buckle up. You're going to be there for a while.
That is going to be going through about 7 layers of court.
Yeah, 3 years minimal, I would say.
Because nobody's going to want to touch that. They're going to send that up the line.
And then there's a question that even if the Supreme Court will even want to talk about it.
and it'll balance itself back down.
Yep. So at that point, it's to the point where it doesn't matter. The moment that that enforcement goes through, all of this is going to go straight to the courts. It's not going to matter in the end, and they're going to have to either change the law or something is going to implode.
Exactly. And in the meantime, we can keep uploading.
Yeah, I personally think just continue on as normal until that point where they have decided that this is either ridiculous or they go with a nuclear option.
So here's my question, Dulcet. Since I've put my we'll go around with the room with this one. If there are a couple of people reaped, so to speak, I don't know. Let's say how many people getting hit would make you going, all right, I'm tapping out. 100, 10, 1,000.
I mean, the question would be how much. How are they being hit? Is this like as a fear tactic, or
we are sending you a notice to appear in court?
that notice would have to show up on my door before I even gave it a second thought, and even then I'd just be like, how did they find me, and how quickly can I disappear again?
Yeah, well, no, you're missing a point here, Brony. Not us specifically. I'm saying, how many people on YouTube would have
but that is the answer to my to your question.
Specifically, you're going to be in there to the bitter end. Okay.
I mean, shoot, I got a series I got to finish here. I'm not. Yeah, it's.
I can completely understand that mentality.
Yes. All right, I'm forming the phalanx with you, Anthony. Okay, I'm gonna go down.
Well, I'm there for the first rapture. I'm not. I don't know about the second, third, and fourth. You sound like you're yeah. You ever hear there's a children's rhyme from it's called the Slithery D, and it goes, the Slithery D came out of the sea, got all the others, but it didn't get me. By the end, you hear. I'm not going to be there to the bitter end, but I will be there maybe once, maybe twice. It depends how many times people get picked off. If they show up once a month and pick off 10 people, I like those odds.
Yeah, but if they come on and nuke, 1,000, even then, 1,000 is not going to put a dent in tens of hundreds of millions.
Especially if I start hearing, well, I'm not paying them, and then nothing happens.
Right, because if they're asking for that much money per offense, there's nobody aside from there's nobody aside from Bill Gates that's ever even going to somewhat have anywhere close to that money. You're just going to be like, that. It's not there. What the frick do you want from me? You're not getting it. And it's not enforceable on a number of certain things. So yeah, until the whole website is barren and dead, and I get a personal notification, I'm still making videos. There's no amount of people that'll get nuked to stop me.
I might have been more worried if they would have made the fine 100 a video, just because of I might have to pay that.
Well, yeah, and then you get somebody like me who's got 350 videos, and most really popular creators have several times more than that. Then yeah, that's a credible threat. But if you're coming at me with even $10,000, even if it's not the $42,000, even if it's just $10,000 per video or something, a fraction of that.
Well, it's the same thing with the FBI warning on VHS tapes. If anybody can remember that, who started reading that after a while?
Right.
It just became an empty, idle threat.
Wait a minute. So, for example, who here knows about the UFC?
Yo, I mean everybody.
Dana White specifically started going after the smaller kid pirates to prove a point. I don't know how effective it was, but there were some people who got way over their heads. Now I don't know how bitter or how committed the FTC is. What?
I'm sorry, Anthony. Could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you over this UFC video I have going in another tab. It didn't work. Is my point in that joke there? It didn't work.
They would have to nuke a lot of people. I mean, over 1,000.
And let me interject. Let me interject this here. Is we've talked a couple of times and we've mentioned it and kind of brushed it off of going to another platform like BitChute, or I've seen Daily Motion in the chat. I don't think that's a good idea either, because they don't really have ways for creators to support themselves. I mean, maybe BitChute does. I think I've heard something like that. You got outside of something like Subscribestar or Patreon or something like that. And that's when, because that's when you're going to get a splintering of the community and us. Everybody's going to pick their favorites, and sure, it'll be really good for competition and capitalism and, you know, the most fit business and the best business model, but it'll still be a fraction of what it was on YouTube, and that'll really affect a lot of people that were making their living off their creations.
Till recently, Brawny, there was an alternative. It was an adult website that had monetization that until they started cracking down on that too. And the best part is you wouldn't have had to worry about targeting kids on that website.
That's true. Yeah. Well, that was PayPal cracking down for no reason, if I remember correctly. It was just PayPal decided they didn't want Pornhub.
That was KOS issues,
yeah.
For anyone who it's a certain hub site, we'll leave it at that.
Well, I don't know why you're worried. I went ahead and said it.
Oh, okay, Pornhub. There you go.
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Sure. Okay.
All right.
Moving on from that.
Yeah. So, what do you got for me, Dulcet, before we move on?
Going back on what you had asked about before with like ElsaGate and things like that.
Yeah.
Before that, what came after that was the first adpocalypse.
Right, and the adpocalypse nonsense was, oh my god, which was so stupid, and anyone with a brain could have found a better way to do that. But go ahead, and I'll explain my view later.
Yeah, well, with the first adpocalypse, what it was is that they went in and all of these people were realizing that there were ads on all of these suspicious videos, and then they realized that all of the that they need all these activists went and said, "Hey, your ads are on this video. You really want this being represented?" And then everyone pulled out. And
not everyone.
Well, a lot of people pulled.
Pepsi and Coke pulled out, and then
you know all of their.
And they were the biggest representative.
Nothing more wholesome.
And that scared YouTube. So let me interject this real quick here as to why
I
this
want
was.
to address that real quick though.
Okay,
Brony.
go.
I heard this from Boogie0928, who said he had a couple of friends in like higher places. The reason why a lot of those companies pulled out, and this I believe it because it's a good hustle. These big companies do not care at all what happens on YouTube. It's why they come back.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, the reason that they leave is, oh, good, we could stick it to YouTube when we renegotiate.
Yep,
we can make the contract even cheaper. And you know what?
They can cite
if you
something.
keep spamming the same ads at people, it's not really effective anyways. So, come back a couple of months. It's better for us anyways.
Spamming ads at me and at someone like me in the first place isn't effective to begin with, because I just hate freaking advertisements. But let me tell you,
on occasion I see.
Let me explain this to you in the way that I understand it. The adpocalypse happened, and a lot of people were getting demonetized and a few, as I understood it, it was only a few big advertisers pulled out. But it shouldn't have worked like that in the first place, because the rest of Google AdSense everywhere else targets you depending on your interests and your search history, much like Facebook does. And whether or not that's legal or a good thing to do is another discussion, but that's what it does. And you get those advertisements, so it really shouldn't matter who's pulling out, because who's pulling their advertisement, because let's say I watch a lot of videos about off-roading, right? And there's a company that advertises on YouTube that specializes in gear for off-roading, modding my souped-up Jeep with a high lift, and I got to take a ladder to get in it in the first place. So I should be seeing those ads. I shouldn't be seeing ads for like a political candidate that I've never watched before or something like that. That's yogurt. YouTube.
Or those that no matter what, because they're political candidates.
Right, but the point is the way it worked originally, and the way it works on the rest of Google, and as well as Instagram and Facebook, redundancy, and Twitter, is that when you search something, that goes in, and you're signed in, and you're not on private browsing, that goes into your cookies, and then it brings up ads. So it really shouldn't matter. And then YouTube complains about running at a loss, but they've got all these other programs going that are sucking up a whole bunch of money, and they're and then they cut a ton of their funding because when they disagree with somebody politically or socially, they take away their funding. Well, they're getting, what was it, like 40% of that AdSense? So they're cutting off their nose to spite their face, and it's the dumbest thing ever, and it should have never been an issue in the first place. Real quick, I'll give you guys a chance to rebuke what I just said or respond or whatever you want to do, and then we're going to move on to the next segment. Sound good?
Okay.
Sure.
Yep.
As for that and the way things work now, again, this could just be bitter conjecture from being like one of those low-level people, but as I understand it, or at least it's the popular take, is unless you're like a Will Smith or like a Fox News or some mainstream thing, there's only so many ads to go around. Those people get first dibs. It's like Reagan trigonomics or Reagan trickle down. These people
Reaganomics.
Yeah, that little trickle down. It's the people at the top who get the first, swipe at everything. These are it could be mainstream media, it could be on the news, and it could be a bomb fire or a gunfight or some shit like that. That's going to have its ads. These videos can't be taken down no matter how many people flag them. They're there. And everything after that, if YouTube has the time, we get.
Yeah, I suppose that's the way it works, but it's still retarded.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, keep in mind here, and when you say that thing about, well, they do about that for this, that, and the other about conservative or whatever it is, Fox News doesn't get jerked around like that, I bet you. If you're a fucking corporate enough, you get to have the premium suite, so to speak, from Susan.
Right. So does anybody else have anything they'd like to say to that before we move on?
Well, I never got to finish my solution.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Go ahead.
That's all right. I mean, the one thing that would probably be more useful is something that needs to be applied all over the place with some of these original bills, is that they need to be updated to stay in pace with the way technology and social structure is working, and that clearly didn't happen if you look at a majority of the wording in this document.
Oh, absolutely.
It's something that they're like, oh, we didn't update that, and we're busy with something else. And it's something that if we had, we wouldn't be running into the issue right now that we are, or at least not to the severity. So, accountability and keeping all your ducks in a row when it comes to keeping pace with the rest of the kids too, because like Buck said, I mean, we can't use the word dude according to some of this.
I was driving to work this morning listening to a song that's been in my iPod or my phone or whatever I've been playing music on for a decade and a half here. It's it's just titled whatever, and it's like, this is my United States of whatever. And it's like I don't even know if that's the real name of the song. But I'm just sitting there driving to work knowing that this stream is coming up and thinking to myself, wow, this song is not Coppa friendly. Because it says, it's just whatever. I was down at the pool hall, and Officer Leroy came up and he's like, hey, I thought I told you. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, that's the whole song. Just some dude just saying whatever to everybody he meets.
Yeah, whatever, cool, duh, and games, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So
it says, whatever kids appeal to. Aren't kids into edgy swear words?
No. You ask their parents and they're into everything wholesome.
Yeah. I don't know. I worked in childcare. I caught more 10-year-olds dropping F-bombs than you would freaking believe.
Oh, no, absolutely. There's a definite disconnect between what parents perceive and what kids are actually...
Right. So let's get into the last segment here. We are definitely going to run over time, but you know what? It's been a very good conversation, so it's been worth it. So now let's address some of the comments and questions we've been getting in the chat that I've been. So
viewer mail.
Yep, and I unfortunately forgot to write down who was asking these questions, so I'm very sorry about that. The first one early on in the stream was, is this meant to replace net neutrality? So let me talk...
That was Colin Brown.
Thank you very much. So, now let me put on my tinfoil hat here for a second, because I am definitely a conspiracy theorist, and this reads an awful lot like a different approach to something like what SOPA and PIPA was supposed to be, and what net neutrality was supposed to be back in like the early 2000s, and it got, shot down by popular demand there. And what we were worried about net neutrality being, and now they're, so my sort of conspiracy theory towards this is that, yes, it is more of a different way of protecting copyright for larger corporations, so they can just say, hey, are you, like for the Brony or the people like me, they're like, oh, you're using My Little Pony clips and you're saying things that are not child friendly, so yoink, it's another reason to take it down, and another reason to censor people that they don't like politically. They can just say, oh, you're not child friendly. And if that is the case, it would be a brilliant strategy, because it's like, oh, now you're splitting the community itself, because you got these misguided people that want what's best for children and want to protect the psyche of children, and they believe that by censorship is the right way to do that. And now you've got people that are proponents of free speech, and now you've got all this infighting back and forth. What do you guys think about this? Is this meant to replace net neutrality?
I don't think so.
Absolutely not.
All right.
I think net neutrality was something more from the corporations, and this is more for the soccer moms.
It's good to know that I'm the only conspiracy theorist in here. Go ahead, Dulcet.
I'm a huge conspiracy nut. It just doesn't feel like it's that sort of thing. I don't know, either that or the corporations were smart enough to try and sneak this one through.
Yeah, this is a distraction from net neutrality, essentially.
Yeah, that was somebody else's question. Is this a distraction? And I would have asked, what is it a distraction from? So Dulcet thinks it's from net neutrality. What do you guys think? Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. Maybe, I don't know.
It's definitely distraction. It's got to be, because it just popped up out of nowhere, and it was in the middle of both political and world issues that no one really wanted to worry about, it seemed like. So it sideswiped a lot of people, including, it hit a lot of my projects where I had to start moving web hosts and stuff like that. So it definitely I would have.
Somebody said it won't be the FTC that screws you over. It will be YouTube's implementation of the FTC law. What do you guys think about that?
It's not wrong.
Well, they basically, do I expect the FTC to be like, here's the fines, hand them out, or we're going to sue you again? Maybe.
I do believe the rep from the FTC said that they personally were going to, them personally being the FTC as an entity, were going to do sweeps every so often with their own tools. And I don't believe for a second that they actually have the resources to do that. But regardless,
I think he thinks that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that is something they believe, but I doubt they have that infrastructure in place.
Right. Here's a really good question. Can YouTubers from other countries not be fined? So how is this going to apply to overseas content creators, people that are not stationed in the United States?
I'm sure that they'll send them the fine, and then the other person, if they're smart, will roll it up and smoke it.
That's probably a more colorful version of what I would say, but yeah.
There's no precedent. At this point, there is no precedent towards or against it. And if it does to the point where they are found to be guilty of it, heaven help the world. But the thing is that there's no precedent either way for a lot of this stuff. So some type of legal decision has to be made before any of this is enforced.
Brony, let me hit you with this one. If you make a video that isn't in compliance with the European Union, how scared would you be?
About as scared as I am of Coppa.
Yeah, that wouldn't.
I would say less. I literally wouldn't care what Europe thinks at all.
Like I just had this funny image in my head of Jacksepticeye getting something in the mail, you know, and reading out like, hey, you owe the FTC in America $42,000 times 30 or something like that for all these videos that we decided, and he just with his
it's itemized too.
And he's like, okay, come and get me, and he pulls a frickin' Edward Snowden on him. That's the image I have in my head right now. So I don't think people in other countries have anything to worry about.
No.
And like I make a point, and like I don't know, I'm stupid when it comes to computers. I'm sure if somebody knew what they were doing, they could find me. But I'd make a point of people online knowing as little about me as possible. So, you know, I considered monetizing my channel once, and they were like they wanted my address, and I don't want to give Google my address, you know. So they have no way of finding me. I don't ever use my government name online, and I don't have my address anywhere, much less a link to anything or even cards for that matter. So if they find me, they were doing something illegal in the first place. Let's see here. Somebody else said, that is clearly adult stuff since the Coppa matter came to light despite creators disputing it. So that must have been in reference to something else we were talking about earlier, and I lost the context.
That doesn't sound like a question.
You know who I'm amazed is actually scared or was concerned? DWK is the poster child for the person not to be worried about Coppa at all, and he's
true.
And he's worried. I'm like, no, dude, if you get hit, I'm gone. I'm just gone because you're worse than me by a mile. We're all screwed if they hit somebody like that. Jesus.
Yeah.
The person who asked about the overseas stuff, that's Quiet Storm, by the way.
Okay, thank you very much, Dulcet. So somebody else said, if I make a video about Minecraft and put blood and gore in it, is it still kid-friendly because it's Minecraft, or is it not? You know, and this is the gray area that a lot of us are talking about. Like I'll use a clip from an R-rated movie from time to time, and some of our colleagues, and I mean, shoot, Anthony here has dropped 5 F-bombs during this stream alone.
I've tried not to.
it's all right. I'm just making a point.
Let's do one better. Space Ghost, the original cartoon, is a kid-friendly cartoon. What about Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
No.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the gray area that we got to ask about. This is why it's very important for the rules to be consistent and well-defined. But they can't do that because then and here's my tinfoil hat again, they can't do that because that would mean that they would have to, that they wouldn't be able to discriminate based on their political views.
Well, Brawny, laws generally built on exceptions and such. We're on the front line. I mean, we get to see it happen. And we get to be at the butt of it, too. So it's going to be really exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Diverting here for just a minute, Golden Fox and I are going back and forth in the chat, and I think it's kind of funny. He's like, "This is Google. What's your address?" I said, "Certainly, Google. It's 123 Fake Street." And he goes, "Okay, perfect. Here's your monetization. We are not responsible for any SWAT teams that break into your house. FBI, open up!" Oh my God, I feel really bad for anybody who happens to be on a 123 Fake Street, if that even exists.
It's probably out there somewhere.
It's probably out there somewhere.
Just as a gag. By the way, the person who asked that question was EdStar101.
Thank you. So so somebody said this, and I want to know what we think of it. The government is practically violating the 8th Amendment if they gave fines for every video. Now, the 8th Amendment, for those who don't know, is they can't levy excessive fines onto you. Or bail that you can't, I believe is the letter of the law there. I'm just kind of going off of memory here, but I think Dulcet addressed that in the chat as well.
I
So there's
pasted it directly, but I have the quote if you'd like it.
yeah, sure, give it to us.
Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted.
Right. So I guess that would only apply if you're going to jail for this, but I don't think you're going to jail for this.
Well, I mean, it does apply to the fines, and it could be considered a cruel and unusual punishment if it's excessive.
Hold it. I believe the term is excessive is it basically is not to have it stick out like higher than the others. The 14, well, I guess it would. It says up to 42,000, Dulcet.
Yeah, up to.
Yeah, for all we know, like, what if you like wind up getting fined $10 on 3 different videos?
Right.
I mean, if they don't take them down, I'm just going to pay them.
Now
like,
somebody that I could. Somebody that I could imagine actually getting hit by this and it would be justified there was a YouTuber and I forgot her name, but it was a girl who was running like some kind of gambling thing where you actually had to use your personal information on her channel. It was like a contest.
Oh, that's so many problems right there.
Yeah, now that I would understand. But yeah, there's also, and somebody mentioned the 5th, and I can't remember the 5th off that. No, that's incriminating yourself. I don't see how that would work. But yeah, I mean the government, the United States government does that kind of thing all the time. Like, what the frick is TSA? That shouldn't exist. 4th Amendment, thank you. And a lot of this stuff flies in the face of the First Amendment to begin with. So there's my thoughts on all, why these laws aren't even constitutional in the first place.
Well, the people that we put in charge of trying to decipher all this was having trouble understanding what the term high treason means, so I don't think we should be too shocked.
Yeah, that's true.
I want to point this out, and I guarantee this is going to be defensive. Like, say, a game company that has like a general audience rating on it will be like, well, we're technically not for kid-friendly. Why? We have gambling mechanics in there. Ergo, well, didn't you agree to have a G rating on your game?
That's a loot box.
That's gonna happen. That's gonna happen. Watch.
Yeah, and I don't know. Europe got rid of those things, and I'm just waiting for us to follow suit. Like, that'll make me happy. But that's the end of the questions and comments that I had written down, so I think we can pretty much call it there. We've had a nice long conversation, and I've had a lot of fun. Do you guys have anything that you'd want to close with? Let's start with Dulcet this time.
Honestly, it's just what I said before. I think it's just to sit and wait. YouTube can't enforce anything, and if we know anything about the federal government, neither can they. So at this point, we'll sit back, see what happens, and if it's time to jump ship, maybe it's time to jump ship, but at least we'll have a precedent and know what to look for if we ever have to go to a different platform.
I will go down with this ship. There will be no white flags upon my door. What do you think, Malcontent?
I'm just giving you a hard time, Dulcet, but no step back. I remember.
All right. Malcontent, what do you think? Give us some closing thoughts.
Line. I guess I'm of the same mindset with a few asterisks. We should definitely have to wait and see what's going on here because everything is too much up in the air. That being said, I've lasted as long as I have in my professional career because I know when to duck. So there may be a moment when it is time to duck. But right now is not it. I think we need to wait and let everybody else deal with these elements and see exactly where the pieces fall before we can actually put any kind of plan in place.
All right. And Anthony, close us out.
Well, I guess that everybody's a bit more concerned or basically at ease because they saw $42,000. I guess maybe it would be a bit more likely if we winded up getting fines that were consistent with...
With what?
Sorry. If the fines were, I don't know, matched up more with, like, say, speeding tickets. Like, that still suck.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it'd be a little bit hard. I guess if I went to basically the other people on the side said, what? You're not willing to pay the same heed that you would to, your car of your care than you are, a child's well-being. Yeah, I guess the fine is so ludicrously high. It's hard to believe that they're being serious. I mean, I do believe that they are, but you know.
Mm-hmm. All right, and I'll just say that, like, I don't think anything is going to happen. From what I've seen when similar things in history have come up, nothing's ever come of it. Even when they have gone through, like, Article 13 in Europe and net neutrality, that, you know, nothing ever came of that, at least not in a way that we could immediately see. But those who are freaking out about it, while I don't think you need to freak out about it, I think that you're also doing everything that you can, which is, you know, talking, signing petitions, talking to representatives, doing what you can to prepare yourself for, you know, if there is a fight coming up. So just
inform and educate. Yep.
Yeah, just and you know, that type of knowledge is going to be the best weapon that you have, and going forward here, on the off chance that anything should happen. You know, it's just like my toolbox. It's just like my fire extinguisher. It's just like my med kit. It's just like my gun. I almost never use these things, but I would rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them. So, you know, keep up, but don't worry too much. I think we'll be okay. And with that, I think I'll close it out. We had a great stream tonight. Nice long one. Thanks to everybody who came in. We topped off at like 45 viewers tonight, which I think is the most I've ever had. So thanks again to everybody who came out.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to Malcontent for coming on. You guys hear me plug his stories at the beginning and end of every stream now. He's linked in the description. Go check them out, especially his Equestrian City Heroverse series. And I'm not just saying that because I'm proofreading it for him. And check out Anthony's work as well, on the off chance you haven't already. He does a lot of really good live streams and helps expose some of the you know, nefarious villains we have in the Brony fandom and the furry fandom and beyond. You just did a really interesting stream today or a couple of days ago, or something like that. It was about a politician using campaign funds for Steam. I haven't watched that one yet, but I want to. I'm probably going to do it right after I get out of here.
The first 5 to 10 minutes is all we're on topic, and then we're like, well, I feel like we said everything, and then we moved on to like, you know,
and that's a bad habit that you have, but I still enjoy your stuff.
Well, I mean, there wasn't that much more to say about it. I was like, well, this is a hot topic, and then we ran out of juice.
All right, and Dulcet hasn't been active on his channel, but he's got some really good videos as well. His link is not in the description right now, but it will be shortly after this video goes live, so be sure to check him out. Thanks to all of my Patreon supporters who make these types of things possible, especially when Coppa comes and gives me the ban hammer come at the beginning of next year. I'm especially grateful to my $10 and up Patreon supporters. These guys are Autoknight, Sodden Girder, Senko, Jennan, Kellogg, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, and right there front and center, Malcontent. Go forth.
Money well spent.
Yep, go forth and be merry. And I will see you all on Friday for Friday Night Fights and Saturday for Chaos and Crocheting on Heather Blossom's channel. Thanks again for coming out, and have a great night. Say goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye, everybody.
Adios.
If you're looking for crochet people, Rouge is into that, so if Heather needs more people to talk about that topic,
I will definitely look into that. Thank you.
Okay.